this that is more than a wish is a memory. All this that buy this car to drive to work to pay for this car. Buy this car to drive to work.
Welcome to Yellow Brick Road. I'm Jordan, and today we're going to talk about transhumanism and technocracy and kind of like a way of thinking. But first, please do not forget to share, support, hopefully donate to Devon's Journey to Recovery, helping victims of Africom, Cohen, Daly, Australian Boy. Also, help out some content creators, Stevie, aka Redneck Economics, Sleepy J, Buy Him a Coffee, and optionally, the snail from Chicago, Ali Alexandra. All links in the description box. Also want to say my dusty, dirty, and a Braves hat. Go Braves. Go Braves. And world champs, bro. All right. So first off, we're going to be talking about transhumanism and a way of thinking and technocracy and all that stuff. Because we were talking about it last night, and it kind of inspired me to make this video. Because it seems quite prevalent, right? And as far as these things starting to dominate in society. I'm sure a lot of you have read Ali and Seb's article or Jack's idea with cryptocurrency, all that stuff, right? To where it's like, this is like this kind of technological takeover that's spreading throughout all of society, and then they're bringing up the nefarious side of how these can be used by if they're in the wrong hands and whatnot. But my first introduction to transhumanism, which will explain why I go about it the way I go about it. And what I mean by transhumanism is basically technocracy, and like I'm throwing it all into one big category. I don't just mean the particular topic of transhumanism, or just a particular technocracy or whatever. But when I ran into these ideas, probably the year 2012 is when it became like stone cold solid to me. Where it's like, oh yeah, this makes 100% sense, even though I've heard hints of it earlier than that. But in that time period, there was a major difference between the way it was looked at then as opposed to now. Right back then, I had, the conspiratorial, philosophical, existential, like Michael Tsarian talking about a post-human world, and he didn't mean humans dying off and like just humans dying and then there's no more humans go extinct. He was more of saying like what it means to be human going extinct. Emily Haynes of my favorite band Metric, they made an album called Synthetica, trying to make a distinction between authenticity and synthetic, right? They're kind of hinting at the same notion. This idea of what it means to be human, what it means to be yourself, going away for something synthetic. And in fact, the album was a bit of like a rally against that thing. To where like, oh, who you are is very, very important. And so what they're digging at here is like I think they're talking about a way of seeing, not man actually becoming machine, right? And they're talking about a way of seeing that is becoming way more prevalent, and another way of seeing going way further away. When we bring it to like today's world, it seems to be placed into it's now like a political category. Technocracy, it seems more like a political category rather than what I was talking about, those past eras of making it more existential in nature. Like, it's like imagine you, like the whole you, the whole essence of you going away for a type of thinking, as opposed to today's, which might be more of data collection, neural links, military technology, surveillance technology, on and so forth. even the vaccine stuff, right? What was it, the mRNA vaccines, right? Stuff like that. Gene therapies and all that stuff. Uh, and and yeah, that 100% should be paid attention to. 150%. But what I think is missing, in my opinion, from a lot of analysis I see, is like the way of thinking becoming the dominant force. That, right? There's nothing wrong with mechanistic thinking. It's that when it becomes overbearing, just like abstraction, religious abstraction becoming the main way of thinking, where you just get rid of all sense of like looking at it, some things logically or rationally. Now imagine if the abstraction goes to sleep. It's all about the rational, logical, mechanical type of thinking. What happens when that becomes overbearing? Well, once that is the overbearing forefront of most people's minds, the transhumanist, technocratic shit, it all makes sense. It makes sense then, as far as like in people's minds, like, we should go with this moving forward. It would make sense. That's the thing that I feel. I could be absolutely wrong. It feels like that aspect, that looking at it, is quite a bit missing from like the indie media news. They'll say technocracy all day, and they'll tell you about this or that happening socially, but I don't see a sort of a dig at the way of thinking that leads to technology happening everywhere, right? It's coming up with systems to fight systems, right? Or the exact opposite, still mechanistic thinking, believe it or not. Well, I don't like the government, I don't like the system, right? Which are, kind of a mechanical thought process, right? There's this ABC set order of things, a system and a government and the way it works. And then some people's response to that, thinking that it's more human, is actually it's just as equally mechanical in the way of thinking. Well, instead of living in big city, I'll go live on farm. And it becomes its own mechanistic style of things. What I'm trying to get at here is the problem is it's the overbearing of the way of thinking. From credit cards to brain chips but like they sound creepy and from a sci-fi movie, but good is good and bad is bad are not going to be enough for people to be like turned away from that, because the way of thinking is changing. Right? I still think there's plenty of abstract thinking in the world. It's just you can see the style moving toward mechanical way of thinking, which gives the reason for brain chip, credit cards, surveillance, systems replacing systems, which is what something like surveillance might be, right? Where it's before we would detective work and like kind of like doing like trying to read motives here and what the criminal's thinking and all that. Instead, it's just we caught you on camera. Here it is. Right? It would make sense to put in surveillance, right? It would make sense if you're thinking in that mode, right? Instead of nuance, a lot more human nuance in human context, that it's social nuance, social context. Here, here, and here at this time, and here's the weapon, and we did the fingerprints, and there's the DNA that matches, and more mechanical, rather than like, hey man, maybe it's childhood, something like this happened and it led to this type of thinking, which led to these incidences, on and so forth. Or even like something like face scanning technology. Like, you look like a criminal, mechanically speaking. But yeah, so like I'm saying, even it's even transversing into the things that are usually typically abstract. Things like spirituality, dissolve your ego, mechanical idea. Like, here's how you meditate. You do step A, B, and C. Or this song will make you feel or think a certain way. So listen to this song, as if it's one size fit all mechanical type of thinking. Dissolve your ego. Here's a essentially here's a chemical compound to interact with your chemical compound to dissolve your ego. Like, wait a minute. And it's like, that's mechanical thinking. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the fight should be, that's the core, I think, of the fight, that you want to maintain your humanity. If there's more to humans than, being organic robots, there's more to, if you think there's more to humans than that, then your fight should grow and scale, right? I get the, like, there's nothing wrong, once again, there's nothing wrong with mechanical thinking, but this other aspect has to be brought in. And if you're going to take on something like things like technocracy and humanism, neural links, and all that shit, you better walk in with something that can handle, or that can, I don't want to say transcend, but bring another aspect to the table that the mechanistic thinking can't handle. And I don't think purely mechanistic thinking in response to it is going to result in anything really changing. It just adds to it, right? It's this way in art, music, and things become formulaic. And the only things that, like, people are like, man, that's a great movie, is that it could be, this has some sort of political undertone, or it has some sort of mental gymnastic notion to it. Like, a lot of people do that with, like, Inception, right? Like, how, which layer were they in? Is he still dreaming? Like, they're doing like layered and trying intellectually understand the movie, rather than like, hey, maybe he's trying to say something about psychological archetypes that are, you know, they're talking about different ways of seeing, going through the layers of the psyche with those different layers of ways of seeing. Uh, so yeah, where my that's where my mind goes when these topics come up. As like, in my opinion, I do not see that other aspect, because it'll beg some questions, right? Are you sure you are not locked into the mechanistic thinking that leads to the thing you're complaining about right now? Right? If I sit someone down and be, hey, who are you? I'm Jordan. That's your name. Who are you? I'm a basketball American. No, that's what you look like. Who are you? I'm a carpenter. That's your job. That's your occupation. Like, who are you? Who are you? It's like, it gets the here's the biggest aspect of this. Yes, socially looking at things in mechanical ways, right? Like, overly hyper focused on mechanical thinking is bad enough. But once it's turned towards you, that's when it's super duper dangerous, in my opinion. In my opinion, right? Because that will be starting to go after things like your conscience, or mystery in the world, or like things everything can be explained by this formula or that formula, or cause and effect, or like input output, right? And and here's, yes, the to where you start looking at yourself in a mechanical way strictly. In my opinion, super duper dangerous. But if it's happening and you don't realize you're doing it, that even like it just like tripling down on the freaking problem. I think because like I said, the guy who's saying like, well, it's the system and the government, and my solution for that is let's go to a farm and no government. And it's like, I feel like you're just balancing an equation rather than actually really like going in depth. Like, okay, if I can understand like what a human is in the first place, do my best to try and do that. Fuck, wouldn't that? There was an answer to that. Wouldn't that like kind of answer all these other questions, right? Because if we are just organic robots, then it makes sense what they're doing. It makes complete sense. There's going to be betters and worsers, right? Be highers and lessers. Thus, it makes sense to get rid of the lessers. Eugenics. It would make sense then, right? At 100%. Eugenics makes 100% sense. The world is strictly mechanical. Makes complete sense. And if you get the populace to strictly think in mechanical terms, at some point it's going to make sense to them. Straight up. Sorry. But yeah, that's the one that's very pervasive when you don't recognize you're looking at, or you don't even know you're looking at things in a mechanical way because of the lack of attention to maybe the more abstract side of life, the more mysterious things. And I don't mean just calling something a mystery. Say, well, I don't know. It's over there somewhere. Like letting it be a mystery. I mean, like diving into it while it's also a mystery. You're engulfing yourself in the mystery rather than, yeah, it's a mystery over there. I don't know. Over there. uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to come off as like a narcissist right now, or a know-it-all or something. But it's like, man, it's fuck. It seems like all the signs are there for that to be absolutely moving towards that. And I know you see talk about like movies and shit like that, and music, mainly movies, where it's like the depth in the movie. Fuck, maybe abstract thinking, the thing that would actually quote unquote fix the technocratic shit. I really like, being honest with you, like really think that's the case. Really think that's the case. Uh, 'Cause then there's like, oh fuck, there's more to the human than just their paycheck, housing, their mechanized standard of living, happy meter, right? Andrew Yang. Like, there's more than that. There's more human being context, nuance to it. Then we have to be careful when we just say, okay, let's just roll out this thing, roll out this fucking plan. You have to actually sit and think about it a little more. If there's more to the person, thus means this bill or this thing, this system requires more thinking about it. Considering, like, diving into the mystery. Oh fuck, maybe there's more to people. I don't know. All right, that's it for me. I'm also gonna sound like a narcissist here. I don't expect it. I don't expect this to go like. I do believe there's a woo woo to life to where this is important. It does play a role, and your actions are very, very fucking important. 100%. Same time, socially, I don't think the things I'm saying in this video go anywhere. I think a lot of it seemed like that past era of those things like Tessarian's lectures or Metric or great movies or something like that, things that I'd enjoyed and also studied from, be real about it. They made it seem as though these things are inevitable. And then the more I look at it, I'm like, I guess could be the case, but they're kind of warning the viewer or the listener, whatever way they could, like, hey, don't want you to turn into the mechanical thinker. This essentially psychological, like as far as what we consciously see psychologically, would be like, oh, you're like a robot, kind of like a robot, but you don't know it because whatever the programs have been installed, or right, and like I said, even with the quote unquote spiritual realm. Right, this guy Tessarian would warn quite a bit about the New Age movement, and we're all one, and like all that stuff, consciousness. He warned about it because it's like, well, what does that actually mean? You're just saying it as a word. You end up sounding kind of like Cenk Uygur talking about like, well, she's a progressive, he's a progressive. That person, not a progressive. Versus like you're just using the word for the sake of the word, and it's still mechanical thinking, not actual in-depth spiritual process, which includes mechanical thinking, but it's not the over-dominating factor. It's all of it, all of your thinking. All right, I guess I'm done rambling. Don't forget to share, support, hopefully donate to all the links in the description box. You can subscribe if you feel like. Do that too. Comment. I don't know, tell me what you think. Has mechanical thinking become the dominant way of thinking in the modern world? And is that even a bad thing? Is that a good thing? Maybe it's a good thing. If we can get to, like a Peter Joseph Zeitgeist reality, Venus Project reality faster if we just do it more rationally. Maybe. Tell me in the comment section. Like I said, share support, hopefully donate, and donate to all the links in the description box. Check them out. And with all that said, this video, thumbs down.
Say you wanna get in, and then you wanna get out. When you get the money to buy yourself a car.